Welcome to Potato Shop Podcast. I'm Brian.
Iron Dutch Murdoch.
And we're just here today, and we're going to talk. Usually we talk a little pro wrestling, we'll talk a little MMA, but the big thing coming up this Saturday is the Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury number 2 heavyweight championship boxing match. This is probably should be one of the bigger boxing matches in a long time.
Agreed.
So their last fight was excellent. I looked up how many they got bought in pay-per-view buy rates, and they said that it was about 300,000 was purchased, and that was the most in 15 years for a heavyweight championship fight.
That's on the first one?
Yes, on the first one.
Okay.
The last heavyweight championship boxing match that did over 300,000 was in 2003 when Roy Jones Jr. He got 525,000 buy rates for his championship fight. So it's been a long time since there's been interest in the heavyweight championship.
Well, and I think, with those two guys, it creates a lot of excitement. Both guys are fun to watch fight. Both guys put a lot of eyes on the sport. The other thing that I like about this is that Anthony Joshua is going to show up in the mix somewhere in that. You know what I'm saying? Like what's next after this fight for these guys? Is Joshua the next one that they're going to fight? Is that the next big money fight for these guys? For one of them, or maybe both. Who knows? I mean, but you right now you got to see how this fight shakes out.
Now, from what I was reading earlier this week, they said that I guess with this signing, it's now going to be they're going to have a trilogy fight. So no matter who wins or loses.
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm taking that's the route they're going to go. Now, if they walked in and let's say Wilder just KOs Fury right off the bat, I don't know if I'd roll right into a trilogy fight.
Sure.
I'd probably look at the Joshua fight.
Yeah.
But if it's another close 12-rounder, I would definitely just go on and finish it off in some aspects.
I would agree with that. But I think at some point, and like I said, these guys right now are cash money. They're both good for the sport of boxing, and they had a very, very, very entertaining fight the first time. So I'm really excited to see what we get out of this second fight. And I'm hoping the second fight's as good as the first one was.
Oh, yeah. I expect it to be. Now, yesterday at the press conference, they finally started to do a little jaw-jacking back and forth, and it got heated at one point, and they pushed on each other. I'm really surprised that it took this long for them to get to that spot where they started causing a lot, because it's been very civil, it seems like, up to this point. And now it almost seems...
Well, let me say this. I think both those guys have a respect for one another. And how could they not after their first fight was what it was? So I don't necessarily think that there's true bad blood between them. I think what you're starting to see, though, is each guy is very competitive. Each guy believes he's the best. And that's starting to kind of rise to the top because it's almost showtime. And they're not going to come in there half-stepping. They're going to come in there telling anybody that'll listen to them they're the best. And so I think some of what you're starting to see there is just the competitiveness between the two is starting to rise to the surface. And, and let's be honest here, man. These guys are also smart enough. They realize, man, you got to get a little bit of excitement going to get people ready for it,
Oh, yeah. After, I've been looking around just seeing the different things going on. Like, has there been changes? If you remember, Randy Couture talked about when he fought Chuck Liddell, his statement was it's easier for the individual who lost to come back for the rematch, because what they'll do is they'll go back and they'll go to the drawing board and see what they did wrong, what they could improve on. And if you see, Tyson Fury has went to the drawing board. He dropped his manager, who helped lead him back from when he was in depression, and the weight gain and all that stuff, and led him back to where he is now. He dropped that guy and went to Sugar Hill. He was the nephew of Emmanuel Stewart, and he's gained some weight. He's up to two. He said he's going to come in that night at 270. I guess 265 is the max limit, but he said when he walks into the ring, he'll be about 270. Deontay Wilder is saying that it's been showing because he's scared. He's nervous. He can't stay focused. I think it might be Tyson Fury went to the drawing board. This is what I need to do to absorb shots, to maybe his punches will land a little bit harder. When he was on, there was a show on ESPN, and they were talking about it, and Fury, and I wish I could remember the show. It was like 30 minutes. But the one announcer said, "What's it like to go to a draw?" And he said it's like having a loss. And you could tell he said he's got to win. He's got to do it. He's predicting a second round knockout. And I really don't know if he'll get a second round knockout from him. But from that last fight, I do think that Fury seemed to be a more well-rounded boxer, where Wilder definitely has his hand, is a lethal bomb, he can drop on Fury.
I definitely think if, just based on what we saw with the last one, I think that if anybody should be calling or predicting a knockout, it's Deontay Wilder. Because I think that one thing he's proven consistently, it's not a matter of if you go down, it's when you go down. Unless somebody catches Deontay Wilder, unless Fury catches Wilder, he's got to prepare to be knocked down. Because he got knocked down, twice in the first fight?
Right.
And that last one could have been, good night, Irene. Deontay Wilder has some of the best knockout power, and I mean he that's truly what a heavyweight should be. You should have a heavyweight that comes in there, man, and when he hits you, man, he shakes you to your core. That's what he has. On a technical level, Tyson Fury, I think, is a more technically sound boxer than Deontay Wilder. But Deontay Wilder may lose in technical prowess to Fury, he makes up for tenfold in power.
Yeah, it almost makes you wonder, because Wilder has went from being 23 years old, not boxing, to the bronze medal winner of an Olympic Games. He's undefeated in the championship fights. He's 40 out of his 42 fights, 40 of them's been KO victories. So it's almost like, why would he really want to go to the drawing board? Because if he goes to the drawing board and starts making adjustments, is he going to change up? Why are you going to fix what's not broken? And when you look at Tyson Fury at the same time, you could sit there and say the exact same thing, because he's still, 27 with the one decision with Wilder. I'm not certain. So, it's kind of hard, but I do think it makes more sense to look at it. And if he's not looking at what he did with Fury, then I think he's kind of making a mistake. But once again, I like Wilder too, so I think both of them are good.
I think it's interesting too that Fury is the favorite going into this.
What's he favorite? What does it say?
110. Minus 110.
Okay.
And then it says but yeah, I think and I think some of that too, like I said, comes strictly off of the fact that Deontay Wilder isn't as technically sound as Tyson Fury.
Right.
I think Tyson Fury is from just a skill set is a slightly better boxer, but that's all fine and dandy. He's got to survive the knockout power, and when I say that, it's not like Deontay. There's a huge gap between the two skill sets here. But for a big man, Fury moves good. He's got great head movement. That spared him a lot. And a lot of, well, and especially in the Wilder fight, he didn't take a lot of damage, but dear God, man, when he did get hit, whew, it was bad.
Right. They're saying, and I think it was on At the Fight with Randy Gordy and Jerry Cooney, and they were saying that they were wondering is the cut that Tyson Fury received in his last fight. You remember that was right over I think it might have been right over the eye and the eyebrow, and he might have had one on the cheek. I can't remember if he had the one on the cheek, but they said they're wondering if it's fully healed, because usually they'll take, it heals up on the top real easy, but the underneath it takes several months.
So that's actually a good point, because like with the Nate Diaz Mazadov fight, Nate Diaz's scar tissue there around his eye played into that fight, and that could absolutely play into this fight with Fury, because if it gets bad enough, they're going to stop the fight.
And especially with, because I was thinking we're about to see Fury take a loss off a cut.
Right.
It was that bad. He got, and it was a lot of, what was that, round 5, I believe? Because he still had 7 rounds to go. And I remember just sitting there thinking, he's at 21 minutes. He's going to be bleeding. He got lucky he had such a good cornerman to fix that cut.
He did, but that cut, if that would have been in New York, he would have took a loss. They would have stopped it. Because that was a bad cut. And he did have a good cornerman. But even with they can't work with so much magic,
right?
And that to me, that's one of probably the scarier things that he's got to look out for. And unfortunately, I don't want to see it end due to something like that. You know what I'm saying? It's like you don't want to see somebody lose due to scar tissue, and stuff like that. So hopefully that's not the case. But boy, I tell you, I'm excited about this. This is going to be a good fight.
Yeah. If I had to put money on either one of them to win, it's such a toss up. Like I said, I think
it's hard for me to pick, but I've got to be honest with you. If I had to pick one right now, I would probably pick Deontay Wilder, simply because Fury got lucky. Well, Fury got lucky. He's lucky he got up from that last punch there in that first fight. Deontay Wilder's knockout power is scary. It's not a matter of if he's going to knock you down. It's when he's going to knock you down. If I had to pick one right now, I'd have to pick Deontay Wilder.
Same here, because you actually saw him drop Fury. But if without them drops, had it just went straight boxing, it would have been a completely different. Boxing wise, Fury would have won.
Sure. That's what I'm saying. It's
very
such hard for me to.
It's an extreme
I can't
toss
sit here
up.
and hang my hat one way or the other, just simply because. Right, and who's to say Fury might come in there and connect with him and put him in trouble?
Right.
But Deontay Wilder's knockout power and his just overall sheer force is, I think, the determining factor for me if I had to pick one over the other.
Yeah, that's who I would go with. Now, I definitely do feel that the buy rates will be a higher number.
Because everybody's talking about that 12th round.
The 12th round was big.
When he said because he got that when it went down, that looked like that was it. That looked like Tyson Fury just got knocked out. And then he set up like The Undertaker and didn't just get back up. He engaged back in the fight and started making a comeback.
No, he won that 12th round.
But
now, that was like the Buster Douglas Mike Tyson. They said there's people that say Fury got help from the referee. If you go back, there's people that'll argue that. And then you can make that argument, just like you can make that argument with Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson back in, 88, 89? I guess it was 89. So I find that to be something that is very interesting, you know. But be it here or there, throw that completely out the window.
At the end of
for
the
him
day,
to stand up on rubber legs, because there's absolutely no way he got up
there's
feeling
no
good.
way. There's no way he was rubber legged, because he wouldn't have performed the way he did coming back out.
Yeah,
of
but he almost got knocked out. That's why I say. I mean, he's coming up with a concussion.
Sure.
So in turn, him being
but
on,
he was not visibly.
No, absolutely not. I think it almost took the soul of Deontay Wilder, who was already celebrating. Because I thought it was over. Because he pancaked backwards, you know, almost.
He hits him. As he's going down, he hits him with a follow-up hit, solid.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, that's it. And nope. And, buddy, it was amazing.
Yeah.
And that was a moment in boxing history that people will always talk about. They always will, because I mean that was amazing. People went nuts. We went nuts. We got to live it live. We got to watch it. And I really do believe that the heart and soul of boxing and the warrior spirit is alive and well with those two fighters, and that's why it's exciting people to see those two lock horns again, because you've got two guys that genuinely want to go in there and be the best in the world, and they proved it the last fight.
Right. And, you know, even I know we started this segment pretty much talking about how the trilogy will take place. You know, I almost would like to see them just no matter win, lose, or draw, whoever, if there's actually a winner, and not another draw.
Another draw.
But if whoever actually wins, I would like to see them just go on and fight Joshua. Let's tie the belts all together.
Sure.
So you can have one heavyweight champion. I really would like to see that, I think, over go rush it into a trilogy.
I would like you said, I'd like to see a unified champion again.
Right.
That would be nice.
Oh, absolutely. Now, and I also talked about that there was 300,000 buys for the last pay-per-view. Bob Arum, he's come out, he said that he believes that 2 million people are going to buy this pay-per-view. Now, I don't know if he'll go for a 1.7 million jump. Not saying it won't happen, but that's what he's saying. And I'll be interested in seeing, because Wild Wings is showing this, and they rarely show, especially here in this area, it don't seem like they show boxing very much, because there hasn't been much to watch. And that's why it's so good to see boxing hitting that stride.
Right. When they're picking it up, that tells you that there's a lot of interest, and they see that that's got potential to pack the house for them. So that's good. That's absolutely a good thing.
Right. But since I brought up Bob Arum is a 80-year-old man. He's and he is the head of Top Rank Boxing. The reason I brought that up is here recently there was a story on Business Insider that was saying how he said that Top Rank Boxing, he didn't come out right out and say that he was selling it, but he said everything's for sale. And with the speculation of so many different organizations reaching out to him, we had he's held discussions with Endeavor, which is the owners of UFC, who's also talking about doing Zuffa Boxing. Mm-hmm. You've had Liberty Global, and even DAZN has come into the picture wanting to purchase his thing. He's had, like I said, since the 1973, 1975, he's been promoting fights. Since 73, and one thing that he's done, he's had from Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Leonard, Oscar De La Hoya, Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao. He's got all these fights. He's put them all on digitized. He's digitized them so they're ready to go. This back catalog, UFC sold for $4 billion, and I think you could arguably maybe wonder if that was really a right price. Maybe they might have overpaid for it. But if they got $4 billion for that, he's bound to come in with saying, hey, I want $4 billion at least with that. Because, and I'll go back to, I know this isn't boxing, but over in, when Marvel, Disney bought Marvel and Lucas, Disney went to Marvel and they had all these movies planned out, ready to go. So they said, all right, we're going to give you $4 billion. Well, when they went to Lucas, they have nothing really going. And they're like, all right, we want to buy your stories and your movies and stuff. And Lucas is like, well, I want $4 billion too. So then he starts like getting Carrie Fisher and all of them to sign contracts just to look, so he can say, look, I've got stuff in the works. He might not have been doing anything except making them sign contracts, come back, play characters for an eventual movie.
Right.
But he was having to show where Disney was able to go, well, Marvel's got this stuff coming, so we're going to make our $4 billion back because they've got stuff in the line, in the pike. It's lining up to go. I don't know how. So in turn, Bob Arum, obviously he's not George Lucas. He's got fights going on right now. But he's going to want $4 billion from whoever buys from him.
Oh, sure.
And then it'll be interesting since Bob Arum hated, I guess he still hates the UFC and Dana White so bad. I'll just be curious to see how that plays out.
Well, at the end of the day, man, money talks. And if the right deal was put in front of him, it's really not going to matter who's making the offer to him. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's just just not.
Right. Here's some of the stuff that you're going to get with it. Whoever pays for it, you'll get one of the most powerful companies in all of combat sports. Big name athletes under contract. Terrence Crawford, Tyson Fury, are all top ranked fighters. Intellectual properties. Top Rank has footage of prime Muhammad Ali and other fight materials, which it leases. Debt-free Las Vegas real estate. Top Rank owns multiple buildings outright, including a gym near the Strip. This is pretty amazing that, he's got a lot of stuff going on here.
Yeah. Well, let's be honest here. UFC, those individuals, since there's talk of Zuffa boxing coming, since you've got the powers to be, there's a lot of interest now being shown, and you've got a lot of UFC fighters, especially since McGregor and Mayweather fought. You've got a lot of guys that are wanting to show interest in doing both MMA and boxing, and you've got boxers that are starting to consider big fights because the numbers were very good for McGregor and Mayweather, and I think that kind of sets to say, Clarissa Shields has been at a UFC pay-per-view, and I think she has expressed some interest in possibly having a fight with a UFC fighter at some point. I think that there's people that understand there's money on the table here to be made if the right matchups took place, and it would be easier to facilitate some of those matchups if UFC actually outright owned a boxing promotion and had fighters that they could market and create that kind of excitement with.
Right. Now, the only thing that you're going to have when it comes to, if UFC was to buy this, boxers make multi-million-dollar deals. They make a ton of money. Now, a lot of UFC fighters are going to start saying, where's the money? If he's making that amount, where's my money?
Right.
And I think, so in turn, it could be a good thing because I think UFC fighters probably get paid better. They're not just getting 2,000. Now, I'm not saying not all of them, but there's probably some up at the higher echelon that's getting paid very well,
Yeah.
But it's really going to turn into a thing where people are going to start talking about it.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to. So if they do bring this in, they're going to have to change it. It's almost like NFL and XFL. NFL makes multi-million-dollar players. When you look at the XFL, even though I know they're brand new, they've only been in 2-3 weeks, whatever, but they're making lower amounts. So now it's pretty much them players are not going to stay in the XFL if they start making good plays and getting high up there on the
Well,
radar.
I would also, to that though, I would say this is the Vince McMahon's second attempt at going towards football, and I would say once if he can find a market and get some legs underneath it, the money should get better.
Right.
So, and it'll be interesting too if the XFL decide, if the XFL takes off and continues to grow, and actually starts getting to be seen as a true alternative to the NFL. Well, that's going to change the dynamic with the NFL players looking at the XFL, because then it's like, well, I don't necessarily need to play just here, so that makes their marketability, and they're, when you have a free agent, well, is he going to stay with the NFL, or is he going to look to go to the XFL? Now, again, we're looking down the road here, man. This is not something, next year they're going to be competing for NFL superstars. I understand that, but that could potentially happen.
It just takes really one contract, a really good contract from some, because that's what they're saying that for the XFL to succeed. I was watching, and they said what they're doing is they got this first year, and if they can get a really good contract, or is it next year or the following year, that's what they're really hoping for. They're hoping to have decent ratings so they can get that big contract. And if you look at like professional wrestling with AEW, they show up, they get a contract from TNT. They're already profitable right off the bat. So now WWE starts offering all of their wrestlers these unreal contracts that honestly is going to put them out of business if they don't figure it out, That's the thing. I mean, and I know there's business people there, but when you've got a tag team, we'll use the Revival as an example. They don't want to push them, right? AEW obviously wants them. So what do? They say, here's an offer for $700,000 a year for 5 years. And that's insane. I mean, if you're going to give it to a jobber, Mike Kanellis, they don't want to job. They want to push him. 5-year contract for $500,000 a year. I mean, that's called you're driving a car right into a brick wall.
Yeah.
But that's what will happen with the XFL and the NFL, and But NFL's already got such crazy numbers too, with some of their contracts. But they can afford it.
Right. Yeah, that's the big difference.
But we'll go back into the UFC now. That's where if they bring the boxing over, how are they going to pay the boxers? Because if you look at with the Mayweather McGregor fight, them two guys got a ton of money. Mm-hmm. If you looked at the undercard, it wasn't like they were making millions of dollars. Each fighter's making $1 million paycheck.
Right.
They were like UFC. Oh, they were making $10,000-$15,000.
Right. And trust me, there's a lot of boxers out here that consider themselves pros that are not going in here and fighting twice a year and walking around, on cloud nine, worry free, debt free.
No.
So it's not like that boxing. But again, you were talking about something that boxing is such an established sport, and without boxing, there wouldn't be a UFC. There wouldn't be combat sports. Okay, and you're talking about. I mean, there's legacy with boxing. And I understand that UFC's in the process of building their legacy. You're going to have, when you look back on it, the Hoist Gracies, the Ken Shamrocks, the Chuck Liddells, the Tito Ortiz. These guys are always going to be seen as the pioneers of this stuff. But in some ways, what you're seeing right now is your Rocky Marcianos and your Sonny Listons, and you're seeing these guys that created the legacy, and Muhammad Ali's. Right now, what you're seeing with UFC is you see these guys are forging their path.
Right.
And now you got a guy like Conor McGregor, who is a ratings phenomenon. He's changing the game for him. He's probably the biggest star UFC's ever had.
Right.
I don't think he's the biggest star they ever will have. Wait till the UFC gets the right heavyweight. And that's not a dig, at Stipe or Francis Ngannou. But, at the end of the day, man, like I've said before, there used to be a time where a casual person on the street may not even be a boxing fan, but they knew who the heavyweight champion of the world was. And there was a prestige that being the heavyweight champ in boxing carried. And I think that's another reason why you see such a difference in the pay with those guys. Because, I understand right now we're in a hotbed with UFC and it's a growing thing, the Brazilian jiu-jitsu and all this other stuff, but it's still in a lot of ways still very much a growing sport.
Right. I wish I could remember who said it, but they made the comment that however the heavyweight division was going in boxing was how boxing in general was going. And when the heavyweight division was hot, boxing was hot. When it's not hot, boxing's not hot. And you're really seeing it because since the heavyweight championship, Joshua, Fury, Wilder were all brought up, it's all it's so exciting.
It's got people talking about it.
So then in turn, you're looking at the Triple G, Canelo, possible trilogy that they're now talking about, which I'm excited about.
Boy, let me tell you though, if that's a great fight right there. The first two fights were absolutely phenomenal. But I tell you, in my heart, I believe if Triple G plans to beat Canelo, he cannot leave it in the hands of the judges.
No.
He's going to have to finish Canelo.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Canelo, the fights are just too close.
They are.
For them
They're extremely close.
And I feel like that the last fight, I still make the argument that Triple G if it was me as a judge, Triple G's beat Canelo twice.
Right.
But that's not how it's played out.
Yeah. He's got to. He don't leave it in the hands of the judges. I don't know what type of how much a fighter can pick judges either. Because I think he might have a say in some of the refs if they don't like a ref.
Well, and you got Kansas, I know with mixed martial arts, is going to start trying the live scoring so that the scoring will go live. Now, by no means do I feel like that's going to be in place or even an accepted practice before the Triple G Canelo fight goes live. But, again, think about the impact that would have on the fight if come round 8, Triple G finds out or Triple G understands going into round 8, I'm losing this fight. At that point, I think that's absolutely going to make them take a different route.
I'm in agreement with you. We're going to push this topic till next week. The reason being is because I started listening to a couple guys talk about live scoring, and one of the guys, he said, it's not a symptom. It's not going to fix the problem. Live scoring wouldn't. Another guy was saying how if he saw that the card, if he was the individual's fight, if he was down 2 rounds, that it demoralized him because he won the last round. And this came from UFC. Last week there was a bad judging call, and this guy was on top of one of the fighters, and I wish I remember the names, but the fighter was on top of the other one for 4.5 minutes. And when they went to the scorecard, the guy had lost that first round. The guy who was on top for 4.5 minutes.
Lost the round.
Yeah. Well, see, the thing that's going on is they're saying that this one judge might have had ties to the guy's corner because he got his black belt, I believe, in jiu-jitsu. So in turn, there's other things. But his statement was it would have been demoralizing because I would have seen I just won 2 rounds. What else do I got to do to win this fight? I don't know. Now, could that play an aspect? Possibly. Personally, and the reason I want to push it off because I want to really look at other people's opinions and think about it. because
Now,
if I had to
you
just
start losing a fight, I mean, you see this play out in like other sports. Like, how many times has a team had the wind taken out of their sails because another team has rallied and took the lead or something, and it just kind of shuts them down and takes it out of them.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying? So yeah, that'll be fine. We can explore that further.
Because there's so much. Because I'll just say, because they were talking about Invicta, and they said most of the Invicta fights go to scorecard, and they're like, well, after the first round, you're going to see, already know how it plays out. You don't even need the scorecard. Well, I don't need to see the scorecards because I'm watching a fight that's lopsided. It's never. Yeah, I know you always get the screwy judges on occasion. I get it. But let's be honest. It's if I'm watching a basketball team, just like or a football team or whatever, just score. Well, I know how this game's playing. I don't even need to see the score.
Right.
Right. So I don't know. I just want to see. I want to really look at it because I heard it this morning, and I started thinking about like there has to be. I wonder if there's something that I'm missing. But I don't. If I once again, if I had to pick right now, open scoring would still be. I'm gonna have to talk myself out of open scoring.
Well, I think there's times where open scoring would really be beneficial when you have a very close fight, and it might be the difference in somebody really pushing the pace and going for it if they're trying to win the fight. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
and if someone knew they were winning the fight, a lot of times they'll lay down anyway. So it's not like, and if they've been holding you down and just riding your legs, taking you down and riding on you, it's not.
The closest thing we've had to open scoring was the unofficial scorecard that Harold Letterman would keep.
Right.
And I always found Harold Letterman was pretty spot on with his scoring. Like typically when he would talk and he'd show his card, I typically agreed with Harold Letterman, and more times than not. I mean, there's always that possibility it can go, but usually he was pretty spot on with his scoring, and he matched up. And usually when he called and said, "Hey, I think this guy's winning. This is what my card shows." Typically he did good as far as matching it up to what the actual judges had. So I mean, that's probably the closest thing to live scoring that we've ever seen. But that was one, that was an unofficial card, and two, that was not something that was being made public to both fighters, because I mean, really it's irrelevant at that point because Harold Letterman doesn't have a say in the outcome of the decision if it goes to a decision.
Right. So yeah. But that's it. This weekend, Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury #2 pay-per-view.
Yep.
I'm excited for that one.
I think it's going to be great.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I guess that'll be it for today.
We're
rolling into 40 minutes or so. But so next week we're going to talk about the live scoring. We'll be talking about the Wilder Fury results. And so are you good?
I'm good, man.
All right. So until next time, we see you later.
Hey guys, Iron Dutch Murdoch. Thanks for listening to the Potato Shot Podcast. You can listen to us on Podbean, SoundCloud, and other places you listen to your podcasts. We're also on YouTube, so please subscribe and click on your notifications. You can also follow us on Twitter at Potato Shot BC.